So we're going to show you a live demo, show what it looks like to really achieve LAN performance even at WAN scale, is to operate on content that is remote without first making a copy. So to show you a little bit more about what's driving this demo, we have our two sites are AWS West and our data center on the east coast of the US. So we have a direct connect connecting to our wave, dropping into the data center. You'll see two computers on my screen in just a moment. One has a gray wallpaper. It's Windows 10 VM and AWS. It's called the traditional method is what the wallpaper says, and it's just a mapped network drive across the network to a share in our data center on the East Coast. Nothing revolutionary. The second computer has a kind of a brightly colored wallpaper, and it also has a mapped network drive across the country to the same share on the East Coast. The only difference is we're using the Vcinity nodes as mount points to that remote data. We'll get more into that in just a bit, but just know that that's the only difference. All the plumbing is the same. The local area network's the wide area network. Now we do have our Vcinity tunnel configured at 1 gigabit per second for this demo, and the latency, as you see, is roughly 60 milliseconds round trip. So let me bring up those screens. We'll get into the demo. All right, so here's our two computers. Again, the traditional method, just for a simple drawing, compute in the west, data in the east, direct mapping. Vcinity method, still compute in the west, still data in the east. We're now using our Vcinity node as an access to that remote data set. So we have a couple of high-def clips that we're just going to drag into our timeline so we can start working with them as a video editor would. Now, dragging the clips into the timeline is not the exciting part. The exciting part is observing that we get a lossless experience with remote data. So one way to show that in a very objective way is this heads-up display. I think it's called dog ears within Premiere. So when I hit play, what you'll see is these numbers start to go up, and it'll count our display frames per second and our drop frames per second. So that's what we're going to pay attention to. This should be a 24 frames per second video playback. So I've hit spacebar. It takes a couple seconds to queue up, and within a couple seconds of playback, we're starting to drop frames significantly, and our display FPS ends up being roughly a quarter of what our desired target frames per second is. So we'll let this play for just a couple more seconds, and we'll note that we have significant dropped frames, right? This is why our customers would otherwise be making local copies, because this does not make for a very productive day for a video editor. Now, with the Vcinity system facilitating access to that remote data, I'll do the same thing. I'll hit spacebar to playback, and we'll let it play for, well, what was that, a little over close to 20 seconds. So as we let this go up, we observe that our display frames per second is almost exactly the same as our target frames per second, which is ideal. We have no dropped frames with nearly 20 seconds of playback. So this means that we can consume data that's on the other side of a wide area network. We can use it and we can create products without first having to make a local copy.